There's this advice I see getting given quite a bit lately, right? Not even lately, like this is like for the last year or two now, and it's in regards to like philosophy. So like usually it'll be not in a self-help context, but in sort of a guru-esque context, or just a more prescriptive sense of advice. Somebody will go like, read philosophy, it'll make your life better. Generalizing here, and the one thing about this that is not general is they always hold up the same book, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, right? And I think this is so interesting because, I think on the one hand, right off the bat, I think it's like really cool that philosophy has sort of made this comeback, where it's like a genuine thing people are reading now. Like, I know it was definitely kind of already making this comeback a tiny bit when I got into it. But I think like now a lot more people are genuinely reading philosophy all the time. I think that's great. And I think that's really cool. But I think it's interesting how it's being framed. Obviously, art, philosophy, anything written or consumable will change context a lot over time. Somebody reading Nietzsche in the 1930s, I wouldn't want to meet and talk to. Somebody reading Nietzsche now could be like a really interesting conversation, you know what I mean? And right now, maybe not so much philosophy, but especially Stoic philosophy has taken on this very practical essence to it, right? It's people view Stoic philosophy as something that is an effective tool to improve a life. And I think this is really interesting because I don't know, it's never really been like that, right? And I think now philosophy, not even in a self-help context, but just in like a how people view it, philosophy is becoming viewed as a tool to better a life. Like, I don't think philosophy is seen so much anymore as something for curious people who really want to think about things. It's being seen as like, within philosophical texts, there will be direct prescriptions on how to improve your life. And that's really interesting to me because it suggests, will philosophy improve your life? Like, it begs that question, I feel like. If you, watching this, genuinely start reading philosophy, maybe you found one of those videos and you ordered Meditations, will it actually improve your life? I thought about this idea a couple days ago, and I was going to bring it right into a Paint Talk. I was going to talk about it the second I thought of it. I decided to hold off for a minute, though, because I want to think about it a little more. I think it's interesting, right, because a lot of, Meditations is kind of a unique philosophical text. Most of them aren't like that. If you're reading, like, very pure philosophy, you're going to be reading a whole lot of Greek guys going, like, how do we know this chair is a chair? You're going to be reading a lot of metaphysics, a lot of epistemology. It's really not going to be useful, because the first way that people mean this, that philosophy is going to genuinely improve your life, is on a very direct basis. That within Meditations, or any philosophical text, you will get direct advice on how to improve your life. I also, small side tangent, see a lot of issues with how Meditations is perceived and how people are using it, because they're kind of, people are calling it broicism, is this new version of Stoicism. They're very much misinterpreting Stoicism. Like, that's why I'm saying, like, everything requires context, because if you read Nietzsche in the 1930s, you're not reading it because you're interested in, the will to power. You're reading it because you're interested in, what's going on in Germany at the time. If you read Meditations right now, I would argue you're probably not interested in Stoicism. You're interested in a new, proactive version of Stoicism. I think a lot of it's being used as, dare I say, confirmation bias. People are going into it wanting to hear how much power they have over their own life, and they gain that message from it. That's always the problem with philosophy, isn't it? Is that it's so interpretable a lot of the times, and you can oftentimes snip things right and read the right translation and get what you want out of things. And I think that's happening a lot with Meditations right now. But that's a side tangent. I still think it's good if people are reading it like that. I don't see an issue with that inherently. But that's not how most philosophy is going to work. Like, when you're reading Camus or Nietzsche, you're going to be getting sort of abstract ideas. I think Camus is actually an interesting exception to this. He has some more philosophy that like can genuinely like be useful to somebody, I think, in a more direct sense. And that's the interesting thing, is a lot of philosophy is not going to be super direct like that. Like, you're going to be reading a lot of stuff that's not like, if you say you're into philosophy and you just read Meditations and like, you know, like one school of philosophy, I would honestly, and this is so pretentious to me, I would argue you're kind of not into philosophy though. It's almost like being like, I'm really into this TV show, but I only ever watched season 2. I didn't even watch season 1. I just skipped right to season 2, but I love this TV show. Like, I would say, and I don't want to, you know, I feel like this is coming off so pretentious, right? Of like, you're not really into this if you only read Meditations. And that's not, I mean, that is what I'm saying, but that's not what I want you to take away from that. I think, like, the point is, like, go back and watch season 1 and then watch the rest of it too, because you're missing out on so much good stuff by just pigeonholing yourself, you know? And I think this is where the interesting part of the conversation comes in, because we see philosophy, you know, philosophy is being seen as a very practical thing right now, right? And I think that's great because it's getting people to read philosophy, but it's making people cherry pick philosophical texts. People see Meditations as the most helpful philosophical texts of themselves in their own life, and in many ways I think there's an argument that it is one of the more useful ones on a direct basis, that like Epicurus, what he wrote, you know, I think there's a real case for that, but that doesn't mean that you can't extrapolate anything from the other stuff. And that's the conclusion I think I've come to on this over the last couple of days, is that, like, you know, originally I was going to come here and I was going to say, no, philosophy cannot help you in your life. Philosophy is purely for curious people. And I don't know, I held off because I felt that my conclusion on the question was a little pretentious. And I'll never, you know, I'll only be pretentious if I really think I'm right. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I have a take where I'm like, no, I think this is definitely the right stance right here, so I'll be pretentious about it. I was like, I want to think about that more before I really bring that out and discuss it, you know? And I think the conclusion I came to is that, like, no, I was wrong. I think philosophy is very much useful, but in a roundabout way. That roundabout way, namely being that, like, philosophy will teach you how to think more than anything. And I think that's what's so cool. You know, I think there's a big difference between somebody who is smart versus somebody who can, like, really sit down and think about something and like have a genuinely great thought process. And that's why, because I've always thought philosophy exists in such this weird place. Because it's like, this isn't, like, what is philosophy about? And I was like, I know it's so good, I know I like it so much, and why, but like, why do I read it? You know, why do I go into this and like find it so compelling? And for a while I was like, oh, it's because all philosophy is applicable to life. But it's not all applicable to life. But I think all philosophy is applicable to thinking. And I think that's why it's so good, and that's why I would say my answer to this question is that yes, philosophy can genuinely help you, because it can teach you on a day-to-day basis, like, how to think through your own problems better, how to be, you know, more of a proactive thinker. And I think that's a genuinely invaluable skill. I think that's something that everybody could benefit from learning. And I think maybe that's why, you know, even if you go through a philosophical text and maybe you don't pull out, you know, the original interpretation by the writer, you know, which I think is BS anyways, I think you can totally still go in, pull out nothing, maybe not even understand a word of it, but still come out on the other side better, because you're reading something that's challenging like that. You know, you're reading something that is good. And in that sense, I guess, like, I am almost happy that philosophy has taken on this self-improvement lens, because whether somebody's reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, or, you know, a treatise on God by Hume or whatever, is that what that, no, that's not what that's called. You know, whatever, whether you're reading, you know, something by Marcus Aurelius or something that's very sort of out there, in-depth philosophy, Society and Its Discontents by Freud or something, I think you will still get that same sense of improvement just by virtue of diving into something that is like not that like, okay, this is going to require a little interpretation, this is going to require a little thinking, and I think that's so good. Like, I think that's something that everyone can benefit from. And that's why I think that my answer to the question, like, can philosophy actually improve your life? Yes. Not so much in the way that people say, though. Like, I do still stand on this idea that you're going to read a philosophy book and have, like, a new, profound outlook on life, is a little bit of a misnomer. You know, I think the profound nature of the philosophy is in you, and interpreting and challenging yourself with these things, you will find it. And I think that's where it's really beneficial. So I guess, like, overall, nothing to say then, right? Just there's no real point to this, I guess. So we'll full circle there. This is the painting for today. I'm reading 1984 right now by Orwell, and I wanted to paint, because oftentimes, and even on the cover of the book, they depict the Big Brother eye in this very flat way of just like a, poster. And I think like there's so much more visceralness that could be within that. So I want to try and use the reds I've been using to paint it. The reds on this palette are getting really muddy right now, so that just did not work. I think it still looks cool. There's this line in The Art Spirit by Robert Henry of eventually the palette will become the painter by virtue of the colors mixing and things like that, or like the brushes will learn themselves, like that, some artsy fartsy BS. And I read that and I was like, all right, you got that, bro. But like, yes, so you know what I mean? Can't argue with that one, Robert Henry. One Robert Henry, 0 max dice, I guess. No, but I think it looks pretty cool. I don't think it looks like anything I was going for, but I think it's cool. I hope it's not too annoying or bothersome that I've used red for 5 Paint and Talks in a row now. I do, just to make this series economical and to make it actually work, I do unfortunately have to use the same colors for a couple days in a row to make sure I'm actually using the whole thing, or else I will have a whole palette of dried paint at the end of this, and be in much more debt than I ever want to be to fill up these canvases. So that's kind of a function of this. I hope it's not too bothersome. Yeah, so go check it out over on the Instagram. Until tomorrow, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Dyson. This has been Paint and Talk episode 70. Crazy that we're there. I'm here every morning painting and talking with you all. 70, like not too bad, huh?